Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Haddonfield Talks. We are super excited for this one that Chris and I have been waiting on for a long time. Our two buddies, our two public safety guys are here. So I'm going to say, we're going to introduce everyone. Chris, before I talk too much, say hello.
Hi, everybody. Thanks again for having me, Chad. And thank you, Commissioner Troy and Chief Cutler, for coming on tonight. Sincerely appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Chris and Chad.
Absolutely. So we have Commissioner Frank Troy, the newly crowned head of public safety, and as always, our adored police chief, Chief Cutler. How many years are we now, Chief?
As chief, 8 years, going on 8 years.
8 years. And how long have you been with Haddonfield overall?
31 years.
31 years.
Yeah. 34 total in law enforcement, 31 with Haddonfield.
Wow. So actually, I kind of want to start there. So I don't know how many, and I don't know how many people were able or have been able to interact with you, right? You were like the most lovable, nicest, warmest, approachable. You're a very approachable guy. And I think it's important for people to know that who have never actually met you. So a little bit of tidbit, Chris, did you know Chief Cutler and I went to the same high school?
I did not know that.
No. Yeah.
Awesome.
Lower Moreland Lions.
Lower Moreland. Yep. The Lions. Yep.
Did you play any sports, by the way? I don't know if I ever asked you that.
I wrestled. You
were wrestling?
Yeah, I wrestled in Lower Moreland, and then I left, and I actually graduated from Atlantic City High School, and I played football for Atlantic City.
No cauliflower here, though.
No cauliflower.
Wear your headgear.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. So we're going to get into a lot of good stuff. I'm going to let Frank start. Frank, since you've taken over the reins of public safety, what are some of the things you guys have been working on together to change, improve? What are some of your big goals and initiatives this year?
So I would say, so public safety, you have the fire department, the police department, EMTs, so essentially the first responders of Haddonfield. So, and to kind of compare that to when I had Public Works, I think there's a lot more activity that is happening just about every single day. I think it's just kind of, I feel like I would get a lot more emails, kind of concerns about things that were happening day to day, whether it were trees or trash not being picked up, stuff like that. But it's a little more kind of tactical things being resolved. What I found with taking over public safety is a lot of it is more long-term and strategic. So, equal value, just as important to the community. But so, for example, Chief and I worked together. I took over in May, and we were working over the summer to put together a targeted campaign for speeding and moving violations, not rolling through stop signs, kind of slowing down on cross streets, stuff like that, and really made it a targeted campaign for both, or for a couple different tranches, so to speak. So it was the location first and foremost. Those were the hot spots in town where they would see a lot of people speeding or reports of incidents. Like Wood Lane is a good example of that, like around like Wood and Hawthorne. Choose Landing is another one. And then it was a targeted marketing campaign to juniors and seniors in high school, where they received in-person training from our school resource officer, and then also a targeted marketing campaign to the parents through the email system that taught at a different level, where one was more about like distracted driving and stuff like that, more so for the kids. For the parents, it was talking about just the increase in costs that happen if your child, for example, gets into an accident and it's their fault, their first year of driving. You guys, I know your kids are on the younger side, but here's a shocker for you. Your insurance is going to go up as soon as they start driving. But if they have a accident the first year there, you could expect a 30 to 50% increase.
How many accidents do we have? Are we an accident town?
I am a victim of my son got in an accident in his first year of driving, and the rates went up unbelievable. But to answer your question, Chad, we average between 25 and 30 accidents a month.
Give me the perspective.
I mean, that's normal. That in my 31 years, we haven't really gone up or down. It's pretty much, but knock on wood, none of them are serious injury accidents. There are fender benders. I hit a parked car. I backed up into a car. rolling the stop sign, things like that. We're very fortunate in Haddonfield that we don't have high-speed roadways.
Right.
Although I know a lot of people think that people speed, and they do, but we don't have the 50, 60, 70 mile an hour crashes that really cause injury. In fact, I think in my 31 years here, there have been 3 or 4 fatal accidents. And one of them was a pedestrian. One of them happened to be in a police chase. Well, actually, 2 of them were police chases. And I think that's actually, and one was actually had a medical condition and hit one of our borough trash trucks, and he passed away. That so really,
And then there was the guy that drove into the jewelry store last year.
Right. Well, that wasn't on purpose. That wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
Oh God, help us! Oh yeah. How's the commercial? The commercial space overall, I think is relatively safe, right? You guys, like from a patrol and a safety perspective, I think it's relatively quiet.
Listen, right? I don't want to jinx us, but Haddonfield is an extremely safe community. Every year we get voted, top 5, top 1, safest community, South Jersey, all New Jersey. We're very fortunate. We have an officer that walks the center of town most of the days when he's not in court. Our officers are very diligent with the the business district.
Yeah. I mean, I get that sense, to be honest with you. And let's segue there for a minute because Chris brought it up before. I mean, we're here, so let's just go for it. Talk about the homeless stuff, man. I know we had a tier on before. Is it 4 or 6 people? Is it 10 or 20 people? What do you see?
No, listen, we average between 4 and 6, homeless individuals. It does fluctuate. We need to somehow help these people. Every time we deal with a homeless individual, we always ask do they need help? Can we get them somewhere? Things like that. So, we just had a new individual this week. I think Commissioner Troy was actually the first one to call us about a gentleman that was, sleeping in the center of town there. We dealt with him a couple times that day. Every time that we've dealt with him, he says he's fine. He doesn't need our help. He doesn't want us to drive him anywhere. I've had officers offer own money to people to get them on a train, to get them home, offer them to use their cell phones. Some people just don't want to be helped, and some people have mental illness. Like I said, in some of the commissioners' meetings, there's 3 types of homeless people that we normally deal with. The first type is, somebody that's down on their luck that had a job, lost a job, just can't afford a home. Then the second individual is somebody with mental illness, which is quite common. And the third one is addiction issues. So, there's 3 distinct, I would say, populations of homelessness in our town. But we're very fortunate. 4 to 6, isn't 30 or 40 like other towns like Philadelphia, Camden, I'm sure. But it definitely, catches the attention of people in the business district.
Is this something you guys are equipped to or I guess knowledgeable in dealing with, or is this a newer thing? What's historically it looked like for us?
We've had homeless persons quite a bit. It fluctuates, like I said, 4 to 6. Sometimes it might be 1 or 2. Sometimes it might be 8 to 10. But we do deal with it. We do offer county services. The county is more equipped than Haddonfield to deal with this. We don't have any homeless shelters. The churches, I know through the commissioners just recently have decided to try to partner with the council on churches to hire a part-time social worker because the police aren't social workers. We deal with criminal aspects, and everybody knows being homeless is not criminal, but it does lead to crime sometimes. So that's why we get called, or somebody's asking for money or harassing people for money or things like that. That's when we get called. But to answer your question, we can help, but we will never turn down extra help from a social worker or anything like that.
So I'll throw the first comment on.
Geez.
I'll read them out loud to spare everyone's eyes. Elena Selena asks, downtown resident, homeless problems getting worse. It's getting worse. What's the plan other than leaving them there? So I know when a tier was on, it was very heavily focused on the mental health and social services provided to the actual homeless individual. I think what people in Haddonfield or residents want to ask, I guess, number one, what we should do. And I guess the other question is, if it becomes an issue, what are there things in place to, I guess, I don't know if the right word is to apprehend or do things to protect us as individuals.
Well, the only thing the police can do is criminality. So if they're doing something illegally, then of course we can do something about it. But right now, just being on the street or sitting on a park bench, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
Can you,
Chris, what was the thing that we talked about with the tier with was it loitering? Was it?
Yeah, we talked about a number of things with police intervention, and oftentimes the police are not either equipped or just have no basis or justification to detain. And there's an interaction. That's what I'm curious about is, could you walk us through an interaction, one of your officers with a homeless person? Is it interacting, establishing some sort of conversation, or do they immediately call in a social worker?
Well, absolutely. We have definitely, interactions. Most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, we get a call. Can you check on this individual? He's sleeping. He's doing this, or she's doing this, or whatever. So we'll go out, and the officer will say, "Hey, introduce myself. I'm Chief Cutler with the Haddonfield Police Department. We got a few calls about you. We just want to make sure you're okay." And that's how we start the interaction. Are you okay? Do you need help? Either medical or things like that. And then we'll start getting into, the mental health. Do you need a homeless shelter? Especially when the weather turns, the code blues, when it's ultra cold or ultra hot, it's dangerous for people to actually be on the streets, so we're looking at it through the care individual. How can we care for this individual? Unless they turn violent, or unless they say, whatever, or commit a crime. But, most of my guys, and most of the times they go out there, they try and help. And 9 times out of 10, they don't want help. They don't want us bothering them. I know we got one individual a couple months ago. We got called a couple times during the day. And every time we got called out there, we went to check on her, and she started screaming at us because she didn't need our help. So, the police aren't, we can deal with the criminal aspect of it. The mental health aspect is a little challenging for us. We can't force somebody to go to a mental institution unless they say, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill myself. There has to be some sort of, catalyst for us to involuntarily commit somebody to a mental institution. It's extremely hard. We're not really equipped. That's what a social worker, or we can call out a crisis intervention team that will come out and assess, but there are certain standards that we have to meet before. Obviously we can't call them 3:00 in the morning on every homeless person just because they're homeless. So there has to be a catalyst. We kind of triage the situation and go from there. And that was one of Commissioner Cole's. She wanted to have the next level of social work, but we, as the Haddonfield doesn't have a full or part-time social worker right now. So that's why the idea to partner with the council on churches to help, advocate for one or hire one. And so I think they're working on that process, but it's still a process. And I don't think anybody's been hired yet. I think that's the goal. But you're still going to run into that problem. We do have a social worker. We call her out, are they going to come out at 3:00 in the morning? Are they going to come out? There's got to be metrics that have to be met to, justify such a thing. I can call 100 people at 3:00 in the morning, and if nobody shows up, then what's the point of having it? So there are different challenges that we have to overcome, and we're working towards that. And then, when the social worker does come out and they refuse, the person refuses help, then where do we go? what's the next step after that? And that's all questions that have to be answered.
Well, I guess go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, Chad, I just because I want to make sure I answered. I believe her name was Selena's question.
Uh-huh.
I
didn't put up the urination comment though.
Well, I mean, it's sometimes it's I mean that is part of the concern there as well. But
but Frank, how do you? To her point, though, all joking aside, if we see that stuff, right? What do we do? What should we do? Should we be bothering? Is it a bother you guys? Like that's the question.
You should always call the police. I mean, I texted Chief Cutler when I was walking my dog at 5:30 in the morning.
6 a.m.
Yeah. So and I'm sure he was happy to receive my text, but it's neither here nor there. But I mean, so when in doubt, call the police. That's why they're there, and especially if it's downtown, it's 8 buildings away. But we have elected to table it for now, and it looks as if there's interest from the Council of Churches and professionals. I'll put professionals in quotes maybe, but it looks as if they're going to be putting a 501c3 in place, and we're calling it Haddonfield Uplift. So it's not unique just to homeless. It could be anyone in need. But when I was talking to Chris Eckert from United Methodist, I said, look, we have the metrics. We developed the metrics that I think it's a pretty good metrics that we put in place. There is a program that we're leveraging from Montclair that's called Mesh that covers a lot of this, exactly what we're discussing right here. The 501c3 would allow the borough to infuse some money there that we have left over from opioids. So it's grant money and also fundraising from the churches. I know Christ the King is doing some fundraising because Father John was talking about it, and hopefully have this in place. And what that allows you is that that position will transcend any one, head of the church. So you don't want the person to leave and then it falls by the wayside because they're no longer as passionate about it as maybe the predecessor. This allows it to kind of stay forever, have residential input on it, and allow them to keep going. But like I told Chris, I said, look, I want this in place as fast as possible. You can't let perfection be the enemy of good, and why don't you put it in place knowing full well we'll probably be at the 80% mark of what it should be, and revisit in 6 months and find out what's working, what's not, make finer tweaks to it, and then that can become your MOU, which is something that you would do in business. I would never roll out a business plan thinking I've thought of everything on day one. Usually it's measure, defined, implement, control, and reanalyze. So I think we should be moving a little bit faster with this. I'm a horribly impatient person, but I also think I'm very passionate about this. That the police probably should have a backdrop though. Like if that doesn't work, the social worker does not work.
Well, and Frank, that's actually a whole point.
One second, let me continue this thought. And it's going to be dropping to -5 tonight and stuff like that. And there's people there. It would be good to be able to pull a lever. Because a lot of people don't know this. If a person goes to the county court system, they have a whole staff of partners of social workers there. They do referrals. They connect people, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's a homeless situation where it's a family issue where the kid kind of left home or was kicked out of the house, or everything in between. So it's not like you're left to the court system to go to jail. The courts do this every single day. They have social workers they work with every single day, and prosecutors and judges. This is what they do. They're not going to put people in jail for, being brought in for a minor incident in Haddonfield. It's not going to happen. And
I don't. And you know what? I think that's a really good point, right? I don't really think. And again, this is me speaking individually. The goal isn't to just arrest everyone for being homeless in public. That's ridiculous, right? But the question is, and I'm going to play stupid now, right? If we want a downtown that has a certain level of cleanliness and et cetera, what can we put in place legally that balances taking care of their mental well-being while also making us feel like, to be totally frank, we don't have to see a shirtless gentleman sitting outside a business while we're with our children walking downtown. Can we put in an ordinance with the loitering that Atir had talked about the last episode? What can be done? Is there anything that can be done forgetting the mental health and social service part of it? What else can we do? Is there anything that can be done?
So here's the only problem that I have with loitering. I think this loitering is in the eye of the beholder, so to speak. So let's say,
what I mean. A guy standing outside with his shirt off.
But therein lies the problem. If you're sitting on a park bench in a 3-piece suit reading the Wall Street Journal for 2 hours, are you loitering?
Yeah.
So I think that really, that's where I think that the no overnight sleeping I thought was a nice step in the right direction, because one, it's for their own safety. So at some point you have to say, this is not.
Is that put in place? Is that put in place?
No, that is what was tabled, and that's universal. By the way, you can't sleep overnight in Crow's Woods either.
Wait. Time out. You're telling me it was tabled we couldn't pass the ability for them to not sleep overnight?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry.
So I thought that was a reasonable compromise.
What was the argument against that?
I think you'll have to go back and look at the 4.5 hours of YouTube videos on it, Chad. Okay. So I can't summarize it that well.
So we couldn't pass that.
I would say what I do like about it is identical language to what you have in Crow's Woods, that you and I are not allowed to sleep overnight in Crow's Woods. Just if you throw up a tent and just want to hang out there and watch the stars, no one's allowed to. It's really the same thing in downtown. Like you're not allowed to sleep on a park bench if you had too much at Wild Feather and decide to sit for a minute or two. You can't stay there either.
So wait. Hold on. Now I need hold on. So I can't get drunk at Wild Feather and sleep on the park bench.
No, you can.
You can right now.
Oh, I can get drunk at Wild Feather and sleep on the park bench.
Yeah.
But I can't do it at Crow's Woods.
I don't think you should. You cannot at Crow's Woods.
Right. I'm going to do that. I'm saying I can't. Right now, I can't. And in order to do that, we have to pass a new. Is that a law or an ordinance? What is that?
Ordinance.
It's an ordinance.
Yeah, which is a law.
Okay.
It's a local.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll go past that. Okay. So I will leave a lot to unpack still, but interesting. All right. Thank you for that. What's that?
I have like 3 questions, but I'll keep it brief. Chief, does the ordinance allow the officers to a basis to interact? So even if there's no detention or either further intervention, but if the ordinance is somebody sleeping overnight, gives the officer on the street the ability to approach and interact, correct?
Correct.
And is that also, I guess, the opportunity to divert through a social worker? So if the officer sees somebody sleeping on, and it's not illegal, technically they can't interact, right?
You're correct. Listen, we can walk up to anybody and ask them if they don't want to talk to us. They don't have to,
sure.
Unless there's an ordinance involved. That was the precipitous of the ordinance to get the interaction, and it also required the police to offer services. It wasn't just a blanket ordinance saying you're sleeping, you're going to go to jail. There were caveats there. I thought it was well thought out. There are caveats that mandated the police to do X, Y, Z before we can even think about charging somebody. Now, let me just get this out. The cops don't want to charge people. We don't. That's not. I'm a little biased. I think we have the best police department in New Jersey, but our officers, they don't want to lock up people down on their luck or that have addiction or putting them in the legal system is sometimes the only way to mandate them to get help. There's no other way to mandate somebody to get help unless they're a danger to themselves and other. So that's what Commissioner Troy was getting at when the judges and the prosecutor's office do this every day. They have the ability to mandate somebody. Hey, Miss so-and-so, we think you need to go to a mental, have a mental evaluation. They can order mental evaluations. We can, as the police, even if this ordinance passed, I still don't have the power, but it gets them the first start in that system to get them help. And that was my reasoning for even bringing it up to the commissioner in the first place. We need a catalyst to get them to help if they don't want to help themselves.
Sure.
You know, and some people disagree with that, and I get
it. And it's also a balance. We don't want you guys. I mean, you can only do so much, right?
Right.
With your
exactly.
resources.
We don't have unlimited. You know, there's not 100 cops on the street right now in Haddonfield.
Of course.
I would love there to be, but you know, that's not fiscally responsible. But you know, we have limited resources, and this was a way.
Great segue, Chief. That was right into that next part. Let's do it.
Exactly.
You just fit right in there, man.
Yeah. Now I forget my train of thought.
That's it. So Chad's going to take it over anyway. So Chad,
go ahead, Chad.
Your line of questioning. I think Chad has a horrible attention span. I feel like if a squirrel runs in front of him, he's going to dart off and chase that around.
Well, with the perfect segue, what do you want me to do? I can't. What am I going to not take it? I got to take it. What do you mean? So let's talk about that. I'm going to let you answer this the best way you can. Limited resources. So as someone that lives in town, what are the things you guys struggle with as a police force? What do you think? What could be better? I know you're going to say it's relative and all these other things, but what are some of the things we can help you guys with? You know, give us that whole thing.
Well, listen, you know, the first thing that any police chief that you ask this question is going to say manpower. That's the blanket. That's Chief 101. We always want more cops. And I get, you know, we're not going to have 100 cops. You know, we are probably, I'd say for our size town with our size calls, we might be undermanned by 1 or 2 cops, you know. But the commissioners last year, you know, decided to add one more, a dedicated traffic officer. But so we hired that individual. Due to some staffing issues that we have now, they haven't been able to fully grasp that role as just a dedicated traffic officer. You know, hoping, you know, in the near future, by the beginning of the year, we can dedicate somebody solely to traffic enforcement. That's one of our biggest complaints. It's probably the biggest complaints is speeding throughout town. You know, I get 10 emails a day or calls a day. They're speeding here. They're speeding here. They're speeding here. I get it, you know, but we do have limited resources because we have 66 miles of road in town. We have, you know, we have 5,000 residents, and we answer calls too. You know, we just can't sit on one road for 5 hours doing one thing. So we have to triage what goes on. When I first started, we had a dedicated traffic officer. In fact, we at the height we had 4 actually. Wow. You know, yeah, we used to have like 28 officers. Now we have like 21. So, you know, Frank always said, you know, when I talked to Frank, he goes, I want to get back to the days where you're afraid to speed in Haddonfield, you know, back when he was a kid or he was younger. And that's when we had 4 traffic officers. That's when they were solely dedicated to just doing traffic enforcement. They didn't answer the other calls. They didn't do anything else but traffic. So we're trying to slowly migrate back to that. Thanks to the commissioners for adding. You know, so that's one of the things that I would love to see, you know, hopefully sooner than later we can get that off the ground and started and hopefully some of these areas that people call about quite often, you know, Choose Landing, Kings Highway West, Wood Lane, you know, we know, you know, I understand people call and they complain, but we know where the traffic, you know, is in town. We know where the complaints are. And that's what we're trying to do. So
I popped one on for you, by the way, Chief.
I'm sorry, what?
I popped one on for you on the bottom here.
As a crossing guard at Haddon and Kings Highway, please and thanks. Well, there's not one there because there's a light with walk and don't walk. That has been since I've been, you know, here 31 years. Nobody's ever. That's the first time I've ever heard somebody ask for a crossing guard there. We have challenges with crossing guards. You know, it's extremely hard to find somebody who's willing to break up their day. You know, an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon, and what do you do in the meantime? You know, the pay is great, but it's only, you know, you're only, you know, 3 hours a day you're getting paid, or 2.5 hours depending on the post. So it's difficult to find crossing guards.
You know what? Has there ever been an initiative for volunteers in that space or no?
Yeah, we've reached out to the PTAs, things like that. You know, we put up Facebook. We even went to the Acme, the Wegmans. We went to all the local bulletin boards in town, put up our flyer, things like that. Most of the times, especially on bad weather days when, a lot of our crossing guards are older because it does fit for a retired person or somebody, and they don't want to get out in the weather. So during the weather, snow, rain, we have a lot of call outs. And what happens? Well, we still have to man those posts. So then the cops have to man the posts. So, that takes us away from other duties. And some days we'll have 6 or 7 guards call out. Yeah.
Would it be too risky to have the high school seniors take turns doing crossing guard? It might incentivize the seniors to slow down.
Well, you're right. Well, you would have to be 18, and there is training, and we get audited by the JIF, Joint Insurance Fund, on how our crossing guards are doing and what their training's like and things like that. So it's just not, hey, Chad, do you want to go sit on the corner? I mean, I would trust you guys to cross. You probably cross your own kids at one point. But you have to be vetted. There has to be criminal history. It's just not as easy as that. I would love for that to happen, but that's why it's sometimes difficult to get, like any volunteer organization. The fire department has trouble. But volunteer and crossing guards. Yeah. Well, now there is a firm that we could hire, and we looked into that, but it was just not cost effective. It would almost been double to pay an outside agency to outsource our crossing guards.
So you think that's not necessarily the crossing guards, but I'm sorry, what did you refer to them as? The 4 individuals you had before? Where were they?
Oh, dedicated traffic officers.
Traffic. So that's a huge issue. Like from like an issue perspective, it's one of the larger issues.
Yeah, listen, we get speeding. That's our number one complaint is speeding throughout town. And I honestly, and I'm maybe you might think I'm naive, but I don't think most time people don't realize how fast they're going. Yeah. And when we pull people over, oh no, I wasn't going that fast. I was like, yeah, you were, but the way the cars are built these days and the roadways are designed, listen, Grove Street, Shoes Landing, Warwick, our bigger roadways, they're designed, physically designed for 40, 45, 50. So it's now they put houses on, on either side. So that that's why we lowered the speed limit, but visually, and they're designed to go that fast. So when you're not paying attention and everybody's got things to do and rushing to get around, I don't really think people realize how fast they're going because the cars are built better. You don't hear the road noises. You don't hear the sound. The music's better. Now, now I
think the music's gotten worse, but that's just
yeah. But there are people that do intensely speed. Most of them are teenagers.
Brett, are you like a '70s guy? By the way, I feel like you're like a rock. Like you're.
I am. Absolutely.
Chet, can you call out Emily Lips's question about the 90 traffic stops versus 30?
Hold on. Where was it? Hold on.
So I can speak to that. I'll start that off, and then I'll let Chief go into greater detail about that. So we basically what we were doing is we started that campaign, and I told Chief, or I asked Chief, I said, what I really wanted when people went back to school is to really enforce this and focus on it. And at that time, we even had more people out, patrolling and pulling cars over, which is how we got to the 90. It stepped back to 30, and Chief can kind of touch on. Sometimes that's like personnel issues that one person had to roll off and do something else, and whatever the case may be. But with that, with a dedicated officer in the new year, what we're thinking is that trend line should be around like 45 to 50 each month. 90 is probably like kind of almost like setting an example. I think that maybe like 45 to 60, maybe that kind of range in there is where it should be. But part of what we thanks for Emily to picking up on that. She probably saw that on the Facebook page or the Haddonfield Happenings app. But what we're also trying to do is bring more attention to the different activities the police are doing in town. And I've heard a lot of feedback from people saying, gee, I had no idea that you had X number of calls, or or
By
these
the
number of
way,
burglaries.
guys,
So I think it's worked out well, but I mean, I think that knowledge is power too. And we had, we had Danielle do the video for, a lot of people didn't know that for newer cars, if you lock them, for especially like European cars, the rearview mirrors, go back or truncate or, so she did a video just talking about that, and then we highlighted a few of those things on the weekly posts. And the Haddonfield, I mean, like it or not, it's a target-rich environment. There's a lot of nice automobiles here in town, and you have sophisticated people who know what they're looking for. And if it's 10 o'clock at night and it's a 2024 BMW with the mirrors sticking out on the sides, that person knows the keys are in it or near it, and that's gone in 60 seconds. So it's those kind of things we're trying to get exposure to, and just take an extra minute. And I'm sure a lot of times when it happens, it's because you have several different kids and the hands are full with groceries, or like a duffel bag from a sporting event or some nonsense, and then you kind of forget to lock the car, and then someone takes advantage of you, unfortunately.
Yeah, no. To answer the question, and that's exactly what Frank actually asked the same exact question. I think the day after, or at the hours after I put up the, we had the 190, and then the next week we had 30. He was on the phone. Why is this happening? And I explained to him it was that directed enforcement. We actually had we had overtime officers out specifically dedicated for traffic enforcement for that campaign. Like Frank said, I would love to see it up between 40 and 60 an average a week, and I think we can get there quite easily, definitely with a traffic officer, a dedicated traffic officer. So that's what we're going for in the future. We know, we feel the pain of the residents. We know that there's some speeding issues, and we're trying to curtail it. But like Frank said, we have speeding issues. We have bike issues. We have a fraud call. We have a domestic violence. We have this. We have a homeless person call. Like I said earlier, we don't have 100 cops on the street at any one time. So we have to triage and figure out, all right, do we go to the ambulance call, or do we go to a kid, riding a bike in the middle of the street call? So that's, or do we stay on Wood Lane, and I'm just picking Wood, to look at stop sign violations. What's more important? What do we have to get to first? So every day, that's one thing I love about police work, and one thing I hate about police work is every day is a different day. You never know, from time to time, what call you're going to get, or where you have to go, or how long you're going to be there. I mean, sometimes when we arrest individuals, if they have to go to the hospital, we have to sit with them. So now if we have, and I'm just picking numbers, if we have 4 officers on the street and somebody's got to go to the hospital because they have to get cleared for incarceration in the county jail, that officer's there 6 to 10 hours at the hospital guarding that person until we can get him medical cleared. So that's one more person off the street. So at any given time, you might have, a high amount of officers or a low amount of officers. It's all fluid, and it all happens on a day-to-day basis. So speeding is very important, but you know what? We have to, if we arrested somebody for a domestic violence incident, that's going to take officers on the street. Now we can't enforce the speeding. So that's a delicate balance that we deal with.
Is there, and this is hopefully we can segue into the ALPRs, but is there a technology or a signage that force needs, or that you have that you could utilize as a reminder, or
we
sort
do?
Of thing?
Yeah, we do have those "Your Speed Is" signs. There's one dedicated on West End Avenue. There was one on Shoes Landing, but I think it broke. I think we're getting it repaired. And are
they effective?
Yeah, you know what? Yes and no. For the newer people that are riding down the street, yes. For the residents that see it every day, no, it's not. It's not effective. For the kids,
I'm curious to know, when you do a survey of the people speeding, are most from in town or out of town?
Well, the equipment that we put on the street to actually count the vehicles, there's no way to tell. But for the
I meant the ones you actually catch.
The ones I think, and I think most of the officers would agree with me, is most of the time it's residents. We have more residents. You know, they live in the the Grove Street section of town, and they got to drop somebody off in you know the Tavistock section of town, and they don't like I said, I don't think people speed intentionally. I think their brain's going somewhere else. They're talking, they're thinking about, I got to get my one son here, my daughter here. I have to do this. I have to do this. Right. And I just don't think, and I could be naive, I just don't think people are intentionally speeding. And that's it. And that goes to why most of our speeding in town is probably residents, because that's who drives the town the most.
And Chris, I'm gonna bring it up now, bud. You hit the nail. So what Chris and I have been waiting on. So when we started, to give some context, just for people who don't, I mean, I would hope a lot of people know at this point, but Chris and I ended up raising private funds after this. By the way, for anyone that doesn't know, to clear the air, we asked Chief. We said, Chief, how can we help? What are some? We're hearing the pain of inadequate resources, which every town has. And Chief, I'm sure you would love more officers, right? Because every town would. But in lieu of that, what can we arm you guys with to improve what you're doing? And we purchased these 3 ALPR cameras, and finally we're going to hear about them. How are we doing?
All right. So first of all, let me explain what an ALPR camera is. Automatic license plate reader camera. So whenever you go buy one of these cameras, it takes a picture of your car with a license plate, date, time, things like that. It also runs it through the National Crime Identification Center. So if it's stolen, if it's, there's lots of reasons why the vehicle could be in there, but most of the time it's stolen. So the precipitous of Chad and Chris coming together for this, we were having a lot of car burglaries at the time, and home burglaries, because they were just breaking into the homes to get the keys to the car. They weren't really ransacking the houses. They were trying to get the keys to the car. So that was the overall precipitous of it. And 9 times out of 10, when they come into Haddonfield, they're driving a stolen car. So this camera system that through the your fundraising we're able to purchase us checks that system instantaneously. You drive by it within a second. It has checked the car against the National Criminal Database, or to see if the car's stolen, wanted, and then it alerts our sergeant. It's hooked up to our sergeant's phone, so they get an instant alert. Hey, a car with a stolen vehicle just passed. I'm not going to tell you where the cameras are, but just past camera 1. So now that gives us the ability to, hey, somebody came into town driving a stolen car, or possibly stolen, because and I'll go into the numbers. Let's be on the lookout at 3 or 4 a.m. Something's up. During the day, there's a lot. There's a lot of false positives. That come through. Their car was once stolen and they forgot to take it out. The police department didn't take it out, or a lot of ours, believe it or not, on Grove Street is dealer tags. Yeah, car dealers. They have the same tag number, but just little subscripts, like 1 to 100. Yeah. And if they report one stolen, the whole set is stolen. So there's a guy, and I know he drives a blue Tesla that lives in town that has his car, that license plate, it hits every time he goes by the camera. And it's just, it's just one of those things. So anyway, so now to get that. So we really appreciate you raising the money. So, and this is just a 30-day snapshot of vehicles that passed. We have 3 cameras in town, and this blew my mind. So the total vehicles that passed, the total reads that we got captured, 515,859. Wow. Yes, in 1 month. So that's from September 20th to now. So over 500,000 cars went by one of our license plate readers in the month of, from September 20th on. Now it goes into saying 400,000 of them were unique reads. So that means somebody just traversing through that never came through in that 30-day period. So you have 115,000 that's traversing, that going back, that we've read you more than once, so to speak. But 400 and 6,000 individuals, which was kind of blew my mind a little bit. Stolen vehicles. Okay, since April 1st, 21 stolen vehicles have came through town. Like I said, I tried to parse out the individual that I know. It's not a stolen car, because then it would have been like 500, because he every day he passes the camera. So there were 21. Out of the 21, we were able to stop 3 of them.
Wow, that's good.
Two of them were erroneous, false positives, and the one actually was a stolen vehicle we made an arrest on. So we locked him up. It has been, so that's just the stolen vehicle aspect. The bigger help that we find is for all the cases that we have, the fraud cases, sexual assault, whatever other case we have, we always go to the camera. Hey, did he or she, or was there a vehicle involved? And if there was, could it pass? Do we have a description of that vehicle? The software, it has AI, so I can put into it, give me all the blue Hondas that passed this camera between these hours, and it'll spit out a spreadsheet, so we can start, knocking people off the list. Or narrow down. So it's been instrumental in 9 cases that we've actually made either arrests on or ruled somebody out on. The biggest case was the sexual, the stalking case that we had. That was in Haddon Township and ours. We actually tracked it. We tracked the individual through town. So that's just ours. I don't know. We're the system that we bought is nationwide. So if a police officer in Nevada, let's say, was looking for a certain car, that car could have been in Haddonfield. I have no idea. We would have no way of knowing. So we're linked with not only all New Jersey camera systems, but all over the country. So our cameras could have helped out in a Haddon Township case. Now, Haddon Township, I just talked to their chief. They have 20 readers. Yeah, they have their whole town covered. Wow. And then with this system, we now have access to all the other cameras from the other systems too, not just Flock. Awesome. So let's say Axon has an ALPR system through, it's called the New Jersey State Police SNAP program. Every camera has to feed to the state police, and then the state police give us access, or we can call them and say, hey, we're looking for this car. Can you search the database for us? So it's really a force multiplier. So when I ask for more cops, although we're not getting bodies, we're getting eyes.
Right.
And it definitely helps us in that fact. And our detectives love it. It absolutely loves it.
So 20, how do we get 20?
I don't know. I think
sounds like you need a fundraiser, Chad.
Yeah. I didn't get into how he's paying for them. That's quite, maybe he got a deal. I don't know.
Our biggest thing, Chief, is that we want to, and we're excited because it's really the first time we've heard any objective data from it. Right. But our goal is, do you think, and I'll swallow my pride, but do you think these are worthwhile for us to have in our fiscal planning year after year?
I do. I think and we're actually looking into more technologies that are all of our cars, all of our patrol cars have video cameras in them. Now, the newer ones have the ALPR systems built into them. So not only you're getting the stationary, where we put them in town, but now, if we can equip our police cars with this technology, it's really, you got one of our cars now has one. It was a grant that we received from the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. So that car, when that's out on the street, when it drives by every car, every parked car, there's 3 cameras on one car. So it gets pretty much every angle. And it alerts the police officer in real time, hey, you just passed a car that's stolen. You passed a car that the registration's expired. You passed a car that the drivers wanted person out of, Hawaii. So that's my next goal. I love the camera system that we have in place. I could love to use more, but then, depending on funding and in the future, hey, can we equip another car with ALPR?
How much is that? How much is that?
Well, when we first got that, and I think 2019 or 2020, it was $15,000 for
a car.
For the setup, and then it's 500. We have a shared services agreement with the Gloucester Township Police Department, so they run the database. Our car hooks up to their database, so that's 500 a month. So it's the initial, no, 500 a month, 500 a year. I'm sorry. So the initial outlay for the car, for the camera system, and then the yearly fee to hook up to their data, which they manage for us.
How many cars is it for you guys? Like, how many cars would it be?
We have 5 first line, we call them first line dedicated patrol cars that are on the streets. Then we have the auxiliary cars. If one breaks down, we have the side job when you see a Verizon work on the street and a police officer behind them. We have a secondary car there because we don't want to put the mileage or the hours on the frontline cars, the nicer cars. So all in total, I think we have 12 cars, but 5 of them are only dedicated to patrol functions.
So it'd be 60 grand for the setup, and then it's 500 a car or 500 total a year?
I don't know because we only have one. I would have to call. Quite honestly, I never looked into whether that's the first 5 cars are 500 and every car after that's 100. I don't know. I could ask the chief of Gloucester Township if we ever decide to go that route. But
interesting.
Worst case scenario, 500 a car. Best case scenario, 500 for 10 cars.
So I know it's getting late, but we've really saved the juice for last. That everyone that's here that's made it made it to the 19th hour here. So. Big news, bigger news than we anticipated, right? Which is Halloween in Haddonfield. Frank, you're the historian here. Give everyone context who don't know about Haddonfield Halloween. Give everyone the shtick.
So I would say over the last several years, let's call it 10 years or so, Washington Avenue has become more and more of, all the residents there, or most of them, I'd say on the stretch between like Lincoln and Jefferson is probably the biggest ones where they really go overboard and really nice, creative. I mean, it's really a sight to be seen. And so therefore you've gotten more of a draw from people from town that have gone to Washington Avenue, taking a look at the decorations. During COVID, I guess I kind of forget now. It's probably tamped down or the restrictions, or I really kind of forget. But I would say last year was the year that we hit a crescendo in terms of the number of people that were there.
Well, that was the highest.
Yeah. So we had the streets shut off, barricaded. Again, that same kind of stretch I was talking about. And the cross street, so you can't make it down there. Chief and a few of the volunteer officers had a tent set up in the center there, like right in front of Summit, issuing out candy and interacting with the folks and stuff like that. And of course, being police officers, also keeping a weather eye on what's happening there. But I forget if it was last year that happened or the year before. I know because one of the people was a friend of mine that kind of live streamed the whole thing and got like 2 million views. And people were like, "Where is this?" And it's we're in Haddonfield. And so before you knew it, you had a ton of people descending upon the town here, for both people from in town and and all over the place. And last year, it really it got to be like a little bit kind of unruly. And from a police and safety standpoint, even the police had some reservations about like, hey, this is really kind of an issue here if this happens again and we don't address it early. So Chief and I met with a representative group of Washington Avenue folks maybe a couple months ago, and they had some ideas. We had some suggestions, and ultimately it came down to and I'll back up just for a second. There's no ordinance, there's no law, there's nothing dictating anything in New Jersey about Halloween. It's just like an event that just happens. Some towns have put ordinance in place where they cap the like curfews and stuff like that. I think in Pennsauken is a curfew around 6 or 7 or something like that. But even those are few and far in between. So, what we are doing this year is, and David was interviewed Mayor Seidel was interviewed for one of the papers. We took the kind of social media spreading this, basically saying that, the streets will be open in that area, encouraging people to exercise caution and safety. But what we're trying to do is basically rewind this from becoming a Halloween town destination to just, having lower number of people passing through there. Maybe encourage people, if they are going to go there, maybe just kind of do a quick walk through up and down the street, then go back to their neighborhoods. Because I've heard over the last 4 years about a lot of residents in town kind of complain that, especially people who are older that maybe can't get out and walk around, they miss seeing the kids from the neighborhood. They don't. I mean, some people just don't get trick-or-treaters at all anymore.
Right.
So you have to strike that balance of I'm like a local elected official. I don't think Haddonfield really wants me to be calling balls and strikes on how to do Halloween. Right. But if you're asking my input on it, I would say that the lower or the smaller the crowds, the better. Especially on a night that that you are going to have people driving around. So Friday night, you're going to have teenagers going to parties, little people going to parties, people walking around. So slow it down, keep the crowds to a minimum, disperse. Encourage you maybe to go back to your neighborhood. And hopefully this is like the first year where we kind of just start ratcheting it down.
Back. Right.
Yeah, then it gets back to just what it's historically been.
So I do have a question, and you guys will answer. Is the Michael Myers series based off Haddonfield?
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
Deborah Cohen is from here.
Yeah, one of the co-writers of the original screenplay was from Haddonfield. She went to Haddonfield High School.
Okay.
So back in the 70s with John Carpenter, she co-wrote Halloween, based on it's a fictional town in Ohio or Idaho, somewhere
Illinois.
Illinois,
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have a Haddonfield, Illinois police badge. Some police badge
cool.
that somebody sent to me from the movie, but it's based
so
on.
what's the history like? 'Cause you've been here 30 years. What's the history of Washington at? What is the history? Because I have not been here long enough to comment.
Well,
what's the history?
Washington, like Frank said, within the past 10 years, it's really proliferated into this huge event that culminated last year. How
many do you think? How many people? Do you have any concept?
We were guesstimating about 5,000, over 5,000. Yeah,
in 3 blocks.
Well, it's about 4 or 5 blocks. Yeah, but it's a residential area, and
Right.
that's what people have to realize. We keep getting, you're canceling Halloween. You're doing. I'm like, we're not canceling Halloween. Right. Halloween, you can still go to Washington Avenue and trick or treat. We're just not shutting the roadway down, so we don't have these masses of people. We're trying to spread it out, like Frank said. Go to your, stay in your neighborhood to go, and then walk down Washington, or walk down Washington first. It's a huge area with big sidewalks.
Right.
Some people saying, well, you're making it less safe. Well, we're hoping that less people come, they stay on the sidewalks, and that's what, last year it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. The police department, like Frank said, set up a tent for the past couple of years, and we love interacting with the kids. It's one of my favorite times. We give out candy, we give out water, we had music playing. It was like a block party atmosphere. It just became, a little bit too crowded.
Yeah.
To safely, God forbid there was a fire in one of the houses or something.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way to maintain a fire lane, an ambulance, things like that. So it became out of hand. It was a victim of its own success, so to speak. So in the interest of public safety, when we went with Frank and me and the borough administrator and the residents, so half the residents they didn't all want it either. So it was a major disruption in that area for a few hours. Some people just either didn't want it, didn't like it. They were having issues with people trespassing, urinating. When you get that many people, in town, especially young kids, and they have to go to the bathroom, and there's nowhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where to go to the bathroom. People were going behind people's sheds, in their houses. So it just became a public safety nightmare, so to speak. So we're trying to tamp it down a little. You're still going to be able to go to Washington Avenue. but we're going to maintain the roadway open for emergency vehicles. God forbid there's any issue, and us getting it out now, hopefully people will be like, you know what, we're not going to go this year. We're going to stay in our neighborhood, or we're just going to go for 20 minutes, see the sights, and then, but we can't be trick-or-treating till, last year, 9, 10 o'clock, some of the residents were saying there were people knocking on our doors that late. And it does become a disruption, especially if you have little kids. You get your 5-year-old to sleep, and then you have somebody knocking on the door at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. It becomes disruptive. It's a shame it has to be this way, because, like I said, the police department love interacting with the residents and the people coming to trick or treat. So maybe in future years we'll see if we can do something a little different, or this is going to be the test year. We're going to try and like Frank said, roll it back a little and see how it goes. But we are going to have a police presence on Washington and the rest of the town as well. So we're not going to forget about and anywhere else in town, but there will be probably one dedicated officer on the street, going up and down the street, trying to keep people on the sidewalks.
Chief, with 5,000 people, you need state police back. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. So once you hit a certain threshold, we need to contact the prosecutor's office.
It's a lot of people.
Homeland Security, New Jersey State Police. So there's a lot of back planning. The fire department, Office of Emergency Management. So it's just not, when we have large scale events, like we do all those things. We do it behind the scenes, but this is something, it's such an area that's hard to control because it's so open. There's so many intersections. There's so many houses, and it's not just the people in Washington Avenue. It's all the side streets that are affected too. And people don't realize that some people just don't like crowds. Some people don't like people. So we have to take in everybody's view in this, and this is one way that we thought that we could try to scale it back. We're still having Halloween, we're still having trick-or-treating, but we're trying to just scale it back a little so it's more manageable for a public safety aspect and also for the residents' well-being.
So to follow that up, if you start to see that swell, you at some point you actually do have to legally call in backup. Is that what happens?
Well, listen, I've talked to a lot of chiefs that, in the area. We can call, but they might not come help because they have their own issues on Halloween, especially like Frank said, it's a Friday night. So, it's kind of like the witching hour. If it was a full moon, who knows what'll happen. But, yes, I've been in contact with, I just had a chiefs meeting last week where we were going over all this and saying, they were all making fun of me for canceling Halloween. I'm like, we're not canceling Halloween, but it's a very real factor that we might not have the help. If I call, Barrington, Haddon Heights, they might be doing their own stuff, and their responsibility is to their residents. So, we're going to try to have enough officers on, but, we're going to have the ability to close the road if needed. We're going to have other abilities to do other things that night. I hope that doesn't happen. We're going to try it out, but listen, we're going to be prepared either way.
Well, that's the main thing I'm trying to get at, which is if it doesn't work out,
we're going to have the ability to do other things to maintain public safety. So it's contingency planning.
Was there a discussion to close Kings Highway? Because we're still going to be a draw for Halloween. It's a safe place to trick or treat. The houses are close together. And my thought would be if we close Kings Highway, you might encourage the influx of people to go downtown, and people may actually cross Kings Highway to go to other parts of this town if they do come to look at the lights at Washington Avenue.
That wasn't, I think, because most of the businesses are probably closed. There's no draw. If we close the center, the main artery, why? What for? We have to give people a destination. We have to do, if we do that next year, like I said, this is kind of, a trial and error. If this doesn't work, maybe next year we will, hey, let's move all trick or treating, or let's have the businesses, or let's set up tents, or have a craft fair, or movie night. I know we're doing the Halloween night market, I think that this Friday. We're showing a movie, things like that. So maybe we could transition that to the 31st and have all the tables give out candy. But I think that's for future planning. We're going to see how this works, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
I think the overall thing is, Chief, it's taking it from both sides, right? I think people that live in Haddonfield are super concerned, right? Are super concerned because at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, where you live. I live very close to Washington, and I do see a lot of the deflection. I'm super concerned. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm concerned that if the crowd does come, that there's going to be tons of kids in the streets with the cars, right? So that's one concern. Number two, I'll be honest with you, Washington is not very well lit at all. Like the lighting there is horrible.
Right.
Like
the side streets are even worse.
The side streets are even worse, right?
Horrible. And when you like, to me, it's funny. Chris and I literally were walking down Washington tonight just to like get a feel for it. There was a guy driving on a bike. We didn't even see him.
Right.
Like literally didn't even see the guy. So I think everyone is more like, holy crap, it's going to be 5,000 people and the cars, right? Well, I think that's what's running through people's minds.
No, and believe me, I get that. We've talked through this. That is the big concern, and that's why we're going to have the ability to close the road if necessary.
Right.
We're going to try to, the first part of the plan was let's get this out. So maybe people will divert. So instead of 5,000 people, maybe we'll have 3,000 people.
Right.
And then if we have 3,000 people on the sidewalks, maybe that's not bad, or maybe we will have to shut down the street, or maybe or other things. But we're trying to deflect the people. We're not shutting down Halloween. I've heard that a couple times, and I'm like, that's just absurd. But we're trying to make it more manageable for the people in the area, to conduct business or trick or treat or whatever without inconveniencing that many people at that juncture. And we're gonna see how it goes. If this, the social media, and I know we're on Channel 6, if that helps, great. I talked to a woman last year. She drove from North Jersey. She was an hour and a half. She was an hour and a half away. She saw it on social media. She's like, "Oh, I got to get down here." We're not going to listen. People from North Jersey didn't see Channel 6, I'm sure. But hopefully with some of the social media, it gets out, and instead of 5,000, we have 3,000. Just a more manageable number. Like I said, if we close the streets and there's 5,000 people, God forbid there's a house fire, an ambulance call, things like that. So we have to think bigger picture here than just, and kids, parents have to watch their kids a little bit more. With the roadway being open, hey, hold your son's hand or your daughter's hand. Don't let them just run out in the street because the street's going to be open. Now, we are going to prohibit parking on Washington Avenue that day. So, that will give us the ability, if we need to close it, a clean street to close it on that. And if we do keep it open, kids aren't going to run out between two cars.
Right.
So we're going to limit the parking definitely on Washington Avenue. And then we'll go from there.
What about for the residents? What should they stop giving out candy? And again, opinion based. Should they stop giving out candy at a certain time? What do you think? I'm not telling you you're telling them to.
The residents on Washington Avenue?
Yeah.
That was discussed at our meeting. We discussed, hey, putting up signs. We're out of candy. Like yard signs, or hey, trick or treat. We are going to enforce trick or treating hours between 3 and 6. Don't knock on our door after 6. So we gave all these, like Frank said, we can't regulate that kind of. We're not the Halloween police. So we gave them suggestions. We're going to probably put the our variable message board out on Washington saying, hey, trick or treating, recommended trick or treating hours are 3 to 6. Roadways remaining open. Be careful. Some kind of warning, to people that haven't seen this or haven't seen our social media, haven't seen Channel 6. So we're going to try and get the word out that way as well. But the residents on Washington have to help us out. They can't give out candy till 10 o'clock at night. That's my opinion. If they
that's what I wanted. That's what I asked. You're not going to legally tell people to stop giving out candy.
Correct. My suggestion would be, turn off the light, get whenever you feel comfortable ending the candy giving out, to the residents, turn off their light. They could make a yard sign. We suggested, other things. Now, the suggestion was they all have to do it too. At the same time, we thought, hey, there's strength in numbers. If you guys all stop the candy all at the same time,
right?
You'll have a better, more people will disperse faster than if you have only 2 houses not giving out candy, but 20 of them are. You're still going to get that influx. So our suggestion was, when you guys are stopping candy, because they all talk, end it. If you guys are going to end it at 6 or 5 or 7 or whatever, end it for everybody. Don't do the dribs and drabs, because that's going to have people maintained in that area just to see who's still giving out candy or not.
And I don't want to belabor this too much, but because it's so intriguing, I mean, listen, you guys added fuel to the fire on this show, so we're gonna. The other question I had is, and this is not a suggestion. People had talked about finding a way for it to be privatized or closed to Haddonfield residents to some degree. Is there any legal issue with that?
To do what? I'm sorry.
Like if they were able to close it off so that it was like a private event sort of thing, is that something that could be done, or is that allowed? Are they legally allowed to do that?
The roadway?
Yeah.
So that's how this originally started, as a block party. You have to request, like Lena Acres still does it. They have a block party request. They have to get at least 75% of the residents on that street to say, hey, give their blessing to close the road. So we do allow block parties, right? In different areas of town, just depending. Right. Washington Avenue was a block party. That's how it originally started.
That actually had a permit. Okay, got it.
Right. So that's why I said, hey, we're not approving any block party permits this year. We're not closing the street, and that's what we're going to try to do. But yeah, like say Hawthorne Avenue wants to close the 100 block. They can apply. They can get the signatures, as long as it's not going to be an issue. They have barricades. There's certain criteria that the people have to meet to close the road. But once they close it, they can still do it. We entertain block parties all the time. Yeah. In fact, Chris does one every December.
That's right.
For Santa.
And one thing though, Chad, like I don't think there's any way to really enforce who lives here, who doesn't. I'm
playing. I always ask from like a naive perspective, just to get to figure out, the way things can function. Yeah.
No, I grew up on 2nd Avenue in Haddon Heights. You used to run to Lane of Acres, get the big candy bars, and then go back to Haddon Heights and trick or treat there. Like everyone knew that. So
and that's the other part that sucks, Frank. It's like, it's the catch-22, because if you enjoy being here and you enjoy people coming in and enjoying it, because it is that, but then it's the balance of, we also want our children to have a safe Halloween where there's not 5,000 people, because literally that is where my kids trick or treat. And I lost my kid in the crowd last year. It was crazy.
We've had plenty of lost kids. Now, thank God we find them within 5 or 10 minutes. We call them lost parents. But that happens.
Last scene holding a red Solo cup.
Yeah.
So to cap this part off, you'll see how it goes. But if it doesn't dissipate, it's going to be more of an issue that we're going to address as a town going forward, I guess. If it stays,
we do have contingency planning for all those people that think, oh my God, we're going to have contingency planning. I'm not just going to say, hey, good luck everybody. I'm going to be using my red Solo cup down the street. No, we still have. It's my job and my department's job and Frank's job to enhance public safety and think about public safety all the time. So we're just not going to throw it to the wolves and be like, hey, we're opening the road. Good luck, everybody. We're going to have contingency planning. We're going to have officers. We're going to try to curtail it the right way, not just like throwing up our hands and walking away. But, we had to listen to the concerns of the residents that were pro, that were con, and also my concerns, the fire department, the fire chief's concerns, the ambulance concerns. We just can't have 5,000-10,000 people without any kind of structure.
Yeah,
and that's what was going on. And maybe in the future it'll come back. I don't know. It's kind of a real hard area to police that many people in that large of an area without 50 to 100 cops.
And that's not to be a downer, but there's a fair point in the comments that is there an additional cost to the town to allocate the resources for an event like this when it becomes festival size?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, in fact, both Dave and Frank, the mayor and Commissioner Troy, in their Facebook posts, laid all that out. I mean, it's just not public. There's definitely DPW aspect of it with all the trash. There's a financial aspect of if we do close it, and we do need 15 cops. Well, who's paying for those 15 cops? The town or the people in Washington Avenue going to pay for it? So is it fair to make somebody on Marne Avenue pay for 15 cops to police Washington Avenue when what I mean? So all those factors we're taking in. Everybody thinks that the commissioners just sit there and make decisions just for willy-nilly. There's actually thought that goes into that, and a lot of people don't see it because it's behind the scenes, and I get it, but there's some thoughtful discussions. Hey, what if this, what if that? So it's just not Frank waking up one day and say, hey, I want to open up Washington Avenue just for the hell of it because I don't like that. And that's what a lot of people just have their own opinions. But I can tell you, after 31 years of dealing with local government, the commissioners are thoughtful. They have their own opinions, but they're very thoughtful. They're worked out, and there's reasons behind what their decision making is. Whether you agree with that or not is a totally different story. But there's definitely thoughtful discussion, and everybody's doing it in the best interest of the borough and public safety. Dave does it for financial. Commissioner Coles does DPW. So it's just not a free for all. And that's my one thing in 31 years I've learned in public government that there is a lot of thought behind. Especially in Haddonfield. I've only dealt with Haddonfield. In Haddonfield, there's a lot of thoughtful discussion. There's a lot of smart people in town. There's a lot of residents that give their opinions, and that's taken into account. So.
Well, before we let everyone go, we appreciate it. First of all, the two of you, thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Chief. I got to tell you, Chief. Since we've been working together, it's been a little over a year and a half now. This is the first time we got all this out of you. This feels good.
Yeah, listen, believe it or not, I am a talker. When you get me talking, now I don't talk to my wife, but if you get me talking, it's hard to shut me up, But it's getting me talking in the first place is difficult.
This is awesome, man. Yeah. This is all I've been waiting for. This is great.
Listen, I'm open. I enjoy talking to people. I really do. Some people might like my opinion listen. We all have the same goal as public safety. We might have different roads to get to that goal. Yeah. Some people might not like the roads that I take, but I will definitely explain them, and I have a reason why I'm doing that, and I'll be happy to talk to anybody. Now, some people don't want to hear what I have to say. That's perfectly fine.
In that same vein, Frank, why don't you talk a little bit about Coffee with a Cop and decaf Coffee with a Cop?
Yeah. So we did our last one just a couple of weeks ago. We had about 8 people show up. It was at Jersey Java. So what we're doing is alternating. I think we were doing the third. Was it the
third Tuesday?
Third Tuesday.
Third Tuesday.
Yeah, third Tuesday of every month. It'll be in the morning is Coffee with a Cop.
Right.
Last time was at Jersey Java. Next time maybe it's Saxby's. We'll just kind of rotate that around so we kind of spread the love equally, and everyone has their own coffee shop so they can show up there and meet Chief while he's there. Right. I was there. Danielle was there.
Lieutenant
Stu
Holloway
was there.
Yeah.
So we've kind of fielded questions that time. The next time, the alternating month will be at night. Probably do like around this time, around 8 o'clock. Call it decaf Coffee with a Cop. The people who can't make it in the morning can make it at night. Ask whatever questions they have. So again, that's another forum that if you
it'll be on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Frank's had a day, man.
We'll advertise it. We'll make sure we get it
ready
out.
For the decaf.
Yeah. We'll get more of notoriety about that. But that's a good time to ask questions about just miscellaneous things, which is what people asked about last time, like about painting curbs for to prevent people from parking there and signs and stuff like that. So you have lots of good information you can share on those calls, those meetings as well.
Look, we're getting all the love now. You guys got to see the love before they all go. Everyone thanking you guys for coming on.
No, thank you.
All right. I think we did it. I think we did our justice here tonight. We appreciate everyone coming on. Hopefully you guys catch us. If you want to see the full episode, they will be immediately available. We have 2 YouTube channels. We have Haddonfield Talks and we have Haddonfield Safe. I am desperately trying to get the stream live to Haddonfield Talks Facebook, but Facebook's blocked me, so this is what we're stuck with. We appreciate the coverage David Hunter is providing us in Haddonfield today, and we will chop this up to God knows how many clips over the next week. And one more thing, we have commitment from these 2 to come on once a quarter to keep up with your safety issues. We appreciate that. You guys rock, and everyone get some sleep. We're going to take care of this Haddonfield Halloween thing for you. Chief is there for you guys, all right?
There you go.
Thanks for coming on, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks.